All right. What we saw. So we are live. Welcome in. Um, okay. Yeah. We'll go ahead and get started. Thank you all for showing up on a chilly November morning. Um, yes. Welcome to today's class. Today we're talking all about plants, shrubs that you can use for basically continuous winter beauty. You know, most of the gardening is kind of spring, summer. This time of year, you can still have a beautiful garden, and it's really cool when you can alternate your plants. You know, you have plants that are blooming in spring, summer, fall, even in the winter. We have some awesome specimens that will kind of carry on throughout the season. For those of you who don't know, my name is Eric. I've been working here about 10 years now. Yeah, it started as a summer job back in high school. I skateboard down for work, load up mulch, and then yeah, worked all the way through high school, through college. I went to Embry-Riddle. I worked here weekends and any day that I could in between. After college, I moved away to Medellin, California, doing contract work. Realized I couldn't spend the rest of my life living out of hotels. So when the contract ended, I came back and they offered me a job on the spot. So been here since that was about 3 years ago. So yeah, thank you. Thanks for everyone showing up. We got some of the heaters going today, so hopefully it takes a bit of the chill off. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. As far as kind of an outline for today's class, we're going to start off just giving you some ideas of how to plant, some things to look for as far as visual. You know, we'll go over symmetry, asymmetry, kind of everything in between, and then to talk about some awesome plants that you can use this time of year in your garden. And that being said, too, everything you see at the garden center is stuff that we stand by it, providing and doing very well for you here for this year here. So, yeah, basically, first thing I wanted to cover, just a little bit of a groundwork to get established. So, when doing potted plants, or sorry, let me try to adjust. See if that's any better. So for potted plants, there's kind of three things that we look for. You know, if you're doing a big pot like this, and you want just some pretty annuals or perennials, anything like that, we always say kind of a fun little memory thing is filler, thriller, and spiller. Visually, everything looks better in threes. It's kind of a rule of art or artistic. So just to show you, here is a great example of your thriller. This is a tall plant. Usually you have this kind of back planter. You know, for example, if this is up against a wall or a corner, I would go ahead and put the thriller in that. That's going to be the high one, kind of the main plant that draws your visual attention to it. And then your filler. So this can be something a bit smaller. I always try to do kind of medium height between your tall, your thriller, and your spiller. So, and the reason I chose these yellow pansies is they kind of play off of some of the yellow in the snapdragons here. So you could do something like this, and then your spiller. For example, I'm using creeping thyme. This is an awesome plant. It's an herb. You can pluck this off, use it right in cooking. It's a great culinary, where you can just let it do its thing, and it'll look good in any plant. So basically, you have your three plants, you get it in a nice big pot or something like that, and that's kind of a rule of thumb that we try to abide by. You got your thriller, your filler, and your spiller. And you can use that same mentality going up into larger plants in your landscape. You know, whether it's trees, say you have a nice big pine or spruce tree, that could be your thriller. Then kind of a smaller shrub to complement along with that. That would be, for example, like this pansy, but you could use any of these. And then your spiller, you could do a ground cover, rosemary, such as this one here. This is called a carpet rosemary. This is a really neat plant. It'll grow just about a foot or two tall, but it will spread about 8 feet wide. trim it as much or as little as you want. But yeah, a couple ideas, and we'll kind of continue. As I talk about each of these plants, I'll try and also mention, how you can use it in your landscape to complement other plants and play off of what you have going on. I also want to mention, if any of you have questions, it's a pretty small class, so feel free, just raise your hand. I'll try and answer it on the spot. Yes, sir.
A lot of problems with deer eating our plants. So are most of these pretty much deer food, rabbit food?
For the most part, most of these are going to be relatively critter resistant. If you want to double check on anything, we do have print copies as well as a PDF page on our website. We have one that specifically covers deer and rabbit resistant plants, and then another one that covers more javelina resistant. And if you have any questions on that, it's all itemized. We go by flowers, shrubs, trees, etc. Yes, if you have any questions, we can kind of walk you around and show you what the names of the plants actually correlate to what you're seeing. So,
I just wanted to add that the king flower, I forget what you said.
snapdragon.
Snapdragon. I have 3 snapdragons around the mailbox, and they have been blooming with deer all around them since last April. They're still blooming.
Yes.
They're great.
Oh yeah, snapdragons are fantastic. These guys just keep going. I've got a couple large pots from my house. I always got snapdragons in them. Also have pansies in them. Those are 2 plants, and in fact, I almost have the exact same trio of plants in one of my planters. I've seen javelina walk right up to it. They kind of sniff around, and usually they just sort of wander off. They really tend not to go for these, at least in my experience. So yeah, snapdragons are fantastic. These are pretty dang cold resistant as well, so they should kind of continuously bloom until we really start to get cold. Usually that's around January. They'll sort of die back, and a lot of times they'll end up popping up right back in the springtime. So, and pansies, anyone who knows pansies, these things will pop up right through the snow. They are awesome. So it is an annual, but if you have it kind of in a covered area, a lot of times it'll continuously go. So okay. So yeah, that kind of concludes the little bit of basic groundwork that I wanted to cover as far as visually try to plant in 3s if you can, or odd numbers for that matter. If you have a larger area, a lot of times 5s or 7s will work as well. So set these back. So for the most part, we're pretty much going to start your left over to your right, my right, my left. And we'll start off with some larger plants, the holly, and then just kind of work down the line. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand. I prefer this to flow more as a conversation. Okay. And, we'll go ahead and start with this little guy here, the hosta. I know a couple folks were talking about this before, and for great reason. These are fantastic plants. They're perennials here, meaning that they come up year after year. During the kind of the middle of the winter, they'll start to die back. You can see these are starting to already. But these are wonderful plants year after year. In fact, this is a zone 3, meaning that this plant could be hardy in a climate that gets down to -40 degrees in the winter time. So very, very hardy here. We sell these as a shade plant, meaning that they can take some morning sun. In fact, they prefer a bit of morning sun. But realistically, for the most part, once we get to the afternoon, especially during the hot summer days, these really want some shade. These look fantastic under oak trees. You can do it, around larger trees just to complement as ground cover. You can do multiple of these. It'll give you a real nice, just a nice ground cover. Also, we've got a couple different varieties of these. You'll find them right over, sort of behind you, towards the corner of the greenhouse. Wonderful.
And they have a beautiful 2-foot flower.
Yes.
That comes up and it's gorgeous.
Yes, for anyone who didn't hear, she also mentioned that these do flower. They will usually kind of just shoot a spike up from the middle or sometimes multiple spikes. It'll come up to about here and just a little bit of extra color variation and a neat fact that happens. So from there, we'll go ahead and move into one of the biggest plants we have up here right now. This guy here, as we get into winter, holly is kind of a traditional Christmas winter fall plant. This specific variety is called the Berry Magic Holly. Full size, it will get quite larger, looking about 10 foot tall by about 6 foot wide. Although it should be said too that you can really trim these back as much or as little as you want. They make fantastic hedges. It's evergreen, so you can use these as privacy screens, or you, considering the size, you can use this also just as kind of a specimen with some smaller plants. So, yes. Also, red berries. Birds love these. It's just a cool hardy plant. So this specific variety is pollinated, meaning that it comes to need another one nearby to produce the berries. The next holly we'll talk about is what we consider a male pollinizer, and we'll get into that here in a second. So again, berry magic combination holly. Really pretty plant, quite large, about 10 foot tall, right around 6 foot long. So, as promised, here is another holly. This is what I was talking about being the male pollinizer. So this one here will not produce berries, but it will help other hollies nearby, female plants, to produce berries. This one, the Gold Coast, as the name implies, it has gold on it. This is fantastic to kind of visually lighten up an area. If you have a darker area, you can use the kind of yellows and greens in this to light up. This specific variety, you're looking about 6 foot tall, 6 foot wide, so a little bit smaller than this guy. In fact, you can plant these two kind of in combination with each other. Considering that full grown, this one will get about 4 feet taller than this one here. So you can, again, kind of continue with that trio of plants. This could be your thriller. Here's your filler, and then you can do a lower ground cover or something a bit smaller shrub in front of that just to kind of help keep that rule of thirds going. So. Now, before we get into any other plants, I also want to talk about symmetry and asymmetry and kind of give you some ideas of how to use that in your landscape. So typically, as I was saying, you're usually trying to visually plant in thirds, or you can do fives. Basically, odd numbers tend to look better in most landscapes. That being said, if you're going for symmetry, if you have a nice courtyard or an entryway, you can absolutely kind of frame it out with some larger plants. I'll show you a couple of these that can be great options for that later on. But symmetry, typically you're going for kind of more modern, a little bit more polished look. Asymmetry, that can be a lot more fun where you have a bit more of a rustic appeal or just kind of that natural landscape garden look. So, okay. This guy here is quite heavy. This is a plant that we started bringing in recently. It has been selling out like crazy. In fact, this specific one right here is very much in stock right now. We will be getting more in soon. But this one is called the Redbird Indian Hawthorn. It is a really, really neat plant. It will get quite large when it's full size. You're looking right around 6 foot tall, 6 foot wide, maybe a little bit more with age. It's evergreen, so you get to look at this beautiful foliage year round. As you can see, the new growth comes out bright red. And throughout the winter, it will you will see a little bit more red on it as well. In the springtime, even a little bit in the fall, it will also flower, which we always have folks coming in saying, We want the evergreen plant that flowers and it doesn't need any water. This is actually a really good plant kind of for that. Of course, still needs water. We're in Arizona. It's dry climate. Plants are going to be quite thirsty. But yeah, the redbird Indian hawthorn, fantastic plant. Again, considering the size, 6 foot tall, 6 foot wide, you can use this towards the back of the landscape, fill in with some smaller plants up front. Or you can get a couple of these, make a hedge if you're looking for privacy. It's a plant with many, many uses, and it should work really well in just about any situation you put it in. So, Indian hawthorn, fantastic plant. Now, and I should mention too, there's quite a few different varieties of hawthorns. I chose two to talk about for today, but we do have 3 others in stock, 2 or 3 others. So if neither one of these float your boat, there's probably another variety of hawthorn that can work out for you. So this cool little guy here, one of my personal favorites, is called the ballerina Indian hawthorn. As the name implies, it's a little bit smaller, a little bit more dainty. This guy here will get about 3 foot tall once it's full grown. It'll spread about 4 feet wide. So kind of a smaller, lower growing shrub. Let me pick it up so you can see. It does put off these cool little dark berries on it. And then during the springtime, and even a little bit in the early fall, you can expect these to flower, just like the other one. The flowers, it puts off kind of these real cute little clusters of pinkish white flowers, and the whole plant just comes to life. It's a really neat plant. Usually they'll kind of start flowering early spring, last until around end of April, early May. And then again, as I was saying, hopefully you'll get a little bit more flowers later on in the season as well. Evergreen, so you get to look at it year round. We find these work really well if you have a rock landscape, which a lot of us do here in Arizona. These can play real nicely in with rocks, just as kind of a lower rounded shrub. So again, quite a few different varieties of hawthorn, but I chose my 2 personal favorites. There's more we can talk about. So moving on to another cool evergreen, and I should mention too, you see up here with the exception of, pansies, snapdragons, these are all going to be evergreens. These are plants that you get to look at year round. It's not just going to be sticks shooting up out of the soil in your yard. So this here is called a winter creeper. Really, really cool little plant. This specific variety, the ivory jade winter creeper, full size, will get about 3 foot tall, spread up to around 6 foot long. So this can be kind of, you were talking about your driller, filler, and spiller. This could be a great example of a spiller. That lower growing plant to put towards the front of a trio of other plants that we have. Evergreen, and anything too, the variegation on this, you can see the white on it. If you look closely, a lot of these are starting to turn pink. That's the winter color that these put on. In cold weather, cold climates, they actually kind of start to turn pink on the variegation. So just kind of a neat little splash of color to brighten up your yard throughout the middle. So, again, this is the ivory jade winter creeper. And then I want to talk about this guy here. This is the emerald gaiety. You can see smaller foliage, another winter creeper, I should mention. So this variety, again, right around 3 foot tall. This one only gets about 3 foot wide, as opposed to 6 foot wide on that. So just a smaller, lower growing shrub, kind of fill in. You can use it to fill in, or you can even use this as a big plant and have smaller plants in front of it. For example, once this is full size, this could go here. And again, if you can see, still have some of that pink around the variegation for this throughout the winter. So, pink and pink, that can play very nicely together in the landscape. Usually I'm pretty good with timing, but I must be talking a bit fast. Now, we'll move on to the euonymus. For anyone who knows, euonymus is a very popular plant here in this area. As I mentioned, I went to Henry Riddle College. They use euonymus very, very prevalently throughout their whole landscape. It's a relatively low maintenance plant. It's evergreen, just a popular hardy good choice for this tri-city area. This specific variety, let's see, this is called the green spider. This one will get about 8 feet tall and full grown, but it stays very narrow and columnar. So about 8 foot tall, only 2 foot wide. A lot of times we'll see these. You can use it to go on either side of the courtyard or an entryway, or if you're looking for some height to add to a corner, against a house, these are fantastic. Evergreen, very hardy plant. I should mention too that you can trim them if you'd like. You can kind of shape it to be a hedge. You can plant multiple of these if you're looking for kind of a narrow privacy screen, a block, a hedge, fantastic. So, yes, green spire euonymus, and we hear all different pronunciations of the word euonymus. You can call it just about anything, and most of us here can pick up and decipher what we're talking about. So, yes, awesome plant, tall and narrow. Now, moving on to another variety of euonymus. This guy here is called the gold spot. If you couldn't tell by kind of the yellow and gold irrigation on it. This will stay a little bit shorter. You're looking right around 6, maybe up to 8 feet tall, but it will spread quite a bit wider. Probably looking right around 6 foot wide once this is full grown. Again, you can use this one as a hedge. You can trim it back if you need, or you can just kind of let it do its thing. If once this is full grown, you can use the smaller plants, say a spiller here and a spiller over here, just to kind of visually break things up and to keep it all. A good question. So he asked if the euonymus produces any flowers. These really do not. Every now and then you'll see some little kind of clusters on it, but it's not going to be like the traditional flower. See with the other. So these are usually kind of prized for the foliage as opposed to so yes, gold spot euonymus, awesome plant. You can use it just about anywhere. It's very hardy here. It will take the full sun. It can take some shade if you have an area that's a bit shadier. So yes, really cool plant. And then we will move on to another very popular plant here in town. It is Nandina, also known as heavenly bamboo. Nandina is a pretty common name for these. That's actually the Latin name. This is one of the few plants that we kind of use the Latin name interchangeably with its common name. Most of the plants here, if you look at the Latin name, you're talking many, many syllables, and it's usually quite hard to pronounce. Nandina is quite simple. This specific variety here is called the Tuscan Plain, if you can tell by the kind of this maroon red foliage. This variety will get about 4 foot tall, about 3 foot wide, so kind of forms a small column. You can use these in hedges. You can use these to visually break up if you're looking for a bit of a visual barrier in a yard. You can do multiple in a row or just plant these individually. They tend to do very well. For having small dainty leaves, these are very hardy plants. They take the full sun, they can take some shade. They usually tend to thrive just about any situation that we put these in. So they're wonderful plants. And throughout the winter, as we get into colder weather, the foliage tends to bring out more vibrant colors. And then come springtime, when it's starting to grow, the new foliage will also come out, and it's this brighter color as well. So even though they don't necessarily flower, you still get really cool visual stuff going on here. So Tuscan plane, again, about 4 foot tall, about 3 foot wide. So a little bit more columnar, but awesome plant. And to show you a side by side, this is another variety of Mandina, as you can tell. This variety is called the Gulfstream. So this one here stays a little bit shorter. You're talking right around 3 foot tall, 3 foot wide when it's full grown. So it forms basically a nice landscape. You can use these again to make a visual barrier between pathways, or you can just plant these, for window. Realistically, you can put these in just about any situation, and they always tend to work very well and to look nice year round. So, Gulfstream Andina, Tuscan Plain. These are kind of my two favorites that I wanted to talk about. That being said, there's quite a few other varieties of Andina. We have one called the Firepower, which is a little bit more of the traditional Andina. The foliage on it be a little bit larger, a little bit broader. Again, these are all going to be hardy evergreens. The Firepower stays a bit smaller, talk about 2 feet tall, 2 feet wide, maybe a little bit larger with age. But yes, many different varieties of Mandina. There's another one too. The tends to carry more of the spring. It's called the Pump Passion. That one has real dark kind of green or more purple foliage. So. Now, juniper. Anyone who's hiked anywhere around town, you'll find junipers growing native. It's a very hardy plant for this area, very easy to grow for the most part. This specific variety here, I wanted to choose it because it's beautiful. You have really cool color variation. This one is called the Sea of Gold juniper. Full size, you're looking about 3 foot tall, so very similar to say the Indian hawthorn, the ballerina Indian hawthorn that we talked about. So 3 foot tall, about 4 feet wide. It will form a real nice kind of bow mound. You can plant these multiple together. You can do a row, or you can just do these kind of individually throughout the land. Extremely hardy plant. We rarely have any issues whatsoever with the any varieties of the junipers here in Prescott or the Tri-City area. So, another cool thing about this is throughout the cold, a lot of these plants that I chose, they tend to put off a bit more color in the cold weather. The winter creepers. Same thing with this Sea of Gold juniper. As we start getting even colder, the yellow on this tends to come out even more vibrant. During the heat of the summer, it will revert a little bit more green. So even though it's an evergreen plant that doesn't work, you still get really cool color variation throughout the season. Over here, talk about another cool variety of juniper. This one here is called the Wichita Blue. So this is actually going to be more of a tree. Full size, you're looking right around 10 to 15 foot tall. Here in Prescott, usually we see closer to that 15-foot range. And then as far as width, it's about 6 feet wide. So still an awesome tree, a little bit more compact, or a lot more compact than many of the spruces or pine trees that we carry, even more compact than the Arizona cypress, which is another visually similar looking plant, kind of the same bluish color on it. Those will get quite a bit larger. Okay, I wanted to cover this one just because we're talking about junipers. This is an awesome option. You can use this kind of towards the back of the landscape if you're doing a concert or pump. This could be your thriller. The tall plants in the back to really draw your attention to, and then say you can do some smaller plants kind of around to help complement this. So awesome plant, very hardy, just a good one to go with. That being said, I chose this one specifically to talk about because it's small, cute, easy to maneuver around up here. We also have the Spartan juniper, which has a very similar growth pattern to this. It's about the same size, but that's going to have your traditional green juniper look. So, and there's probably 5 other different varieties of juniper trees that we have in stock here at the moment that will all work nicely in a landscape together. Okay, so now the last of the big plants, kind of the two that I really wanted to save for last, is camellias. These are fantastic plants. This one is quite heavy. Uh, so every winter we get these in right around this time. We'll get some more in the springtime. Usually we kind of have these the cold winter season. This is one of the very few plants that actually flowers in the cold weather. As you can see, this one's in full bloom. It's got quite a few more buds that are just ready to pop. Typically, these flower kind of around this time up until kind of through January, February, sometimes into March. That being said, too, it's evergreen. This is another one of those kind of rare plants that I talked about earlier that evergreen and flowers. Beautiful plants. We carry these in pink flowers, as you see here. Also carry white flowers, and then we have red flowers as well. Each one will get a different size. This pink variety here, full size, you're looking at 8 foot tall, 8 foot wide. Believe it or not, this is the smallest of the camellias that we have. The other ones will get a little bit larger. That being said, you know, if you want this, but it's the 8 foot tall, 8 foot wide is a little bit too large for you, you can always go through, do some trimming, and tune it up. More or less keep it the size that you want to for your area. So fantastic plant, very hardy for this area. Again, this specific pink variety, about 8 foot tall, 8 foot wide. Then this big brother over here, this is really cool. This is called the Winter's Snowman. This one, you're looking 12 foot tall, so quite a bit larger. I believe this is the largest of them, but this one will stay a little bit more narrow, only about 5 feet long. So again, you know, you can use this in a corner, somewhere that you want height, but don't necessarily need or want width. Flowering, exact same as that, kind of flowers throughout the cold weather, evergreen, really hardy popular plant. Fantastic for this area. So, and you know, it's one of the plants that you can use if you want something, if you want the garden to bloom continuously year round. You can use these to kind of cover this whole winter season when most of the other plants are back or, you know, kind of going back. Now, we'll talk about, we already went over the hosta. This is another cool little shade perennial. This one here is called the Cooper. We've got a couple different varieties of this. This one kind of has a copper color to it. We have some that are a bit more burgundy maroon. But these are really hardy plants, low growing kind of mountain plants. Again, morning sun, afternoon shade for the Cooperas. Same thing as the hostas. You'll find all these right over behind you on the shade table. So really cool little plant. This is a perennial, meaning, you know, it'll die back. Just like the hosta. But typically these will keep most of their foliage. We've noticed here in Prescott, usually around until January. So it'll kind of last throughout through the holidays, and then once we really start to drop intense, these will kind of die back and they'll pop right back up once we start blowing up. So, okay. Now, oh, great question. So she asked how large the Cooperas get. Typically, these you're looking about a foot tall, foot wide. Some varieties will get 2 foot tall, 2 foot wide. For the most part, they stay relatively compact. So they don't necessarily flower, but it's just a neat kind of flash of color, something to alternate from the green and the green that we typically see in landscapes around here. So Now, things that will add some color and some livelihood to your landscape without having to water them or worry about cutting them dying. Ceramics. We did, yeah, I'm sure you all noticed as you came in today, we got our fall pottery shipment in. It was a full semi-truck full of pottery. We bring that in about once a year. So right now we have a huge selection of pottery. You'll find most of it kind of already put out around the garden center, but as you saw in the parking lot, we still have more that we have yet to price and put away. If you do have any questions on pricing or anything like that, feel free to ask. We can always find that for you. But yeah, it's over a neat way to add more color or spruce up the landscape or an area. We have a pretty good selection of these little ceramic balls. You can see this one here, or this one here is one of my favorites, just because it has neat bit of color variation. These are all handmade in Vietnam. So you get some really cool, just, and that if you got this, no one else in town or probably the world has the same one. It's just kind of a neat one. So we've got large pots, small pots, everything in between, real good selection. Oh, yes. Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I skipped right over this guy. So this one here, and thank you for mentioning that. This is kind of similar to the camellia for the fact that it's an evergreen. This is what we call a hellebore, also known as Lenten rose. It's a real popular plant this time of year. As I said, evergreen, and in springtime, early spring, it will flower. We have a couple different colors of this, similar to the camellias. We have some that flower white. This one is going to be kind of that maroon. So, real cool little plant. These do prefer a bit of afternoon shade, just to keep it happy throughout the summer. You know, that off western exposure or southern exposure. A lot of times, you can kind of put some of these smaller hostas, supras, but evergreen, very hardy. Just a cool plant. You can put these under a tree. You can plant them north side house or just anywhere else. They're just neat little plants. This one here will get about 2 feet tall, 2 feet wide. So stays relatively compact, but just has that special color and flowers when just about everything else is kind of just working on staying alive till we warm. So, thank you. Okay. Now we'll talk a little bit about products. This time of year we're getting a couple phone calls every day asking, what do I do to winterize? How do I winterize? There's a couple of different things that you can do, sort of depending on what you have going on. One of the biggest things is mulching. If you have perennial plants or just any plants, now is a great year to go ahead and spread a thin layer of mulch down on the soil, kind of around or over the system, just to help insulate throughout the whole winter. Mulch is also the same exact thing that we recommend using to plant any of these in the ground. If you're going in the ground with plant here, we always recommend using some mulch. Ours is designed specifically for this area. Kind of if we going in mind that we use 1 part mulch to 2 parts of the native soil, and it's just a soil amendment to help break up a lot of the clay, the rock, give the roots of these plants a better chance of getting out, exploring, getting established. So, yes, mulch is great. Go ahead and you can spread it around and help insulate root systems of just about any plant this time of year. So, or plant using. Now, if you're doing anything in pots, we recommend potting soil as name and bucket. And I'm sure everyone here is very familiar with mulch and just about all that stuff. But this one here is a really good potting soil. We formulated it for this area. You'll find it has a little bit more heat loss in it, and it helps retain some of the moisture, especially if you're in a dark pot during the heat of the summer. The pots can kind of trap and retain that moisture, retain that heat. This is designed to help retain moisture in that hot climate. Our potting soil also has a very basic just to help kind of get your plants established a little bit quicker, keep them healthier as they go through that transplant shock of going from their nursery pots into any other sort of containers. Now, as far as winterizer, as I mentioned, we've had quite a few phone calls, folks asking, what do I do this time of year to help keep my plants happy, get them ready to shoot up right in the spring. A couple of things you can do. Biggest thing is if you haven't fertilized, now is a fantastic time of year to fertilize, especially that we've finally been getting some precipitation. This is our 744 all-purpose fertilizer. It's a slow release granular. So it's designed with all you have to do with it is spread it down over top of the soil. That's all the application rates on here, but it's real easy to use. So spread it down over the soil, you water it in, or if you get precipitation, rain, snowfall, that will help kind of break it down. It's a very good fertilizer. We formulated it specifically for this area. Here in Arizona, our soil is extremely alkaline, same for water. Just about any plant really prefers to be more on the acidic side for soil and water, or for soil mostly. This is designed to bring that pH level. Most of the soil tests that we see here are kind of around a 7.5 to an 8, which is more on the alkaline. This is designed to lower that back down, make the soil a little bit more acidic, which in turn really helps the plants thrive and grow better. Yes, 744 all-purpose. We recommend using this 4 times a year for anything that's temporary. And to make it easy, we say Halloween, which that was a couple weeks ago. So Halloween, Christmas, New Year's, Easter, and 4th of July. If you kind of go off that schedule, your plants will thank you, and your yard will look a lot better. It's really good for the plants. Now, the other thing you can do to really help out is humic acid. Now, this isn't necessarily a fertilizer. Think of it more as helping out the soil as opposed to the plant, but in turn, helping the soil, creating better soil will be a much better environment for your plant. So it still goes hand in hand with helping out your landscape. This is a granular. All you have to do is spread it down. One bag will cover about 2,000 square feet. We recommend using this for pretty much anywhere in your yard, especially near or around any plants you have. What this does is helps promote soil health. It will bring in some good bacteria. It will help kind of encourage earthworms to do their thing. Just really good stuff. And humic acid is essentially the byproduct of compost. So growing up, my dad always had a big stinky compost bin that he used for his veggie garden. This is essentially the same stuff that you're trying to get out of that compost bin, but it's easy to use, it's granular, it does its thing. I have hands, it's good, safe stuff. So, humic acid, really good stuff.
How often do you suggest that?
So, yeah, great question. Yes, how often we suggest using the humic acid? If you can, twice a year is fantastic. I personally, throughout my yard, I try and put this down about once a year. I just know that it's kind of working in, it's doing its thing, and hoping to keep the soil happy and healthy, and in turn, my plants think. Okay. Oh, about 15 minutes ahead of schedule, but that's all right. We will, that pretty much concludes everything I wanted to talk about today for this class. I'm open for questions now. Anyone has questions? Yes, sir. Great question. So, yeah, she asked if the whole plants are deer resistant, and yes, for the most part, critters really can't take away the foliage on it is kind of sharp and spiky. Not the most edible thing for most of the critters around here. So that being said, these are plants that for the most part are animal resistant, but there's always deer that get a bit hungrier, or we can't necessarily control or guarantee what exactly, but for the most part, they use stay away from.
the watering regime for the plants?
Yeah, great question. So she asked, as far as watering, what to kind of expect. So for the first year that this is around here in Arizona, for the most part, we're always going to recommend deep soak about twice a week. We have a full planting guide inside that goes over watering, and it goes off the gallon size of the buckets. So, for example, this one here from Monrovia is a 5-gallon bucket. So for the first year that this is in the ground, we're going to recommend a deep soak of basically about 5 gallons of water. That's just to help it get established, especially during our hot summer afternoons. Throughout the winter, we recommend a heavy deep soak about twice a month. So for this, I try and get it about maybe 10 gallons of water, basically once every 2 weeks. And I know we do get precipitation here throughout the winter. Even so, it kind of helps put things into perspective. 10 inches of snowfall usually equates to about less than an inch of rain. So it can look like we're getting a whole lot of precipitation, but it's still Arizona, so it's pretty dry. So yeah, twice a month throughout the winter, and then after the first year it's been in the ground, basically just a good deep soak that once a week. Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you all for showing up. Yeah, this is the last class of 2025, so thank you all for coming, and we'll pick these up again in the week right around the beginning of January. We'll start doing some more stuff. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
Oh, thank you.
Good to see you.
Yes, likewise.